Trauma Therapist Podcast, episode 410. Welcome to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to raise the awareness of trauma and to help support and inspire new trauma workers through this podcast and my membership community, Trauma Therapist 2.0. Thanks so much for joining me today, and here we go. All right, folks, before we get started here, I'm going to use this opportunity, these holidays here, this month of December, more specifically, to take a break from publishing new material, but really to go back over the last some episodes and highlight, republish episodes that have become favorites of mine. I'm going to start off with Adena Bank Lees. When I, think of this podcast and what I hope it is, and what I hope it's becoming here, is really a focus on authenticity, not just of the client but of the therapist. Also, and Adena just brings that authenticity, that directness, that gentleness, that humanity to what she does, and you can hear it in this episode. And because of that, I wanted to share that. I just love the way she talks about her work with groups and psychodrama and incorporating safety and her the weight that she puts on that. So I hope you'll find this interesting. And again, if you've listened to it before, even more inspiring this time around. All right, enjoy it. All right, guys, I just want to say that I am thrilled to have this podcast sponsored by CPTSD Foundation.org. A little while ago, I actually got to meet the founder, Adena Moberg of CPTSD Foundation. We met here in San Francisco, sat down, had breakfast, and it was amazing. I got to feel and see her passion, the passion that she has for this work, and not just for therapists and clinicians, but survivors as well. CPTSD Foundation provides peer-led support and adjunctive care in between therapy sessions for survivors of complex trauma. 7 days a week, 365 days a year, survivors can come together to give and receive support and validation and feel equipped with the knowledge and skills they can use every day. You can check it out at CPTSDFoundation.org. Their website is amazing. They have daily recovery support. They have free support groups. They have a healing book club. And Trauma Therapist podcast listeners can get 50% off the first month when they join the daily recovery support calls. You can check that out by going to CPTSDFoundation.org/Trauma Therapist Podcast. Once again, that's CPTSDFoundation.org/Trauma Therapist Podcast. Or just head on over to the website at traumatherapistpodcast.com and click on the link there, and you'll be in business. All right, guys, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. Very excited to have back Adena Bank Lees. Adena, welcome.
Thank you so much, Guy. Really excited to be with you.
All right, so Adena is an internationally recognized authority on trauma related to childhood sexual abuse, in particular, covert emotional incest. Adena's mission is to bring CEI out of the shadows and shine light on the process of identifying and healing from it. In her book, Covert Emotional Incest, The Hidden Sexual Abuse, Adena details the complex nature of CEI, its damaging consequences, and the path to restoration of health and well-being. Today, we're going to be talking about group therapy. And, well, I'll let you fill in the blanks there. So you wanted to talk about group therapy and specifically individuals who have addiction and related to trauma and so forth?
Yes. And so I really want to be very specific, because my understanding is that these are people who are listening are new trauma therapists and trauma therapists who want to enhance their skills.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean,
right?
Certainly that's my specialty, okay. And definitely we have people who are, all along the continuum of experience. But that is definitely where my passion is.
That's what I thought. Okay, great. So what I'd like to do is really take you through the principles that I use in the group therapy, and even some very specific techniques that I use.
Okay.
Where a few of them, your listeners may be able to apply them immediately just by listening. I'm also trying to wet the whistle and get the excitement up for doing some training in psychodrama.
Ah, nice.
Because that is the crux of what I do, and in particular being trauma informed with psychodrama, so being very aware of the kinds of principles that are necessary, and there's specific training and a model to work with post-traumatic stress disorder and dissociative disorders that Dr. Kate Hudgens and Francesca Toscani have developed, and that's one of the books that I'm going to recommend, and so people can go for more training. So my hope is I'm enticing them with their curiosity, to go on for more experience.
Yeah, well, this is excellent. I mean, I haven't really talked too much about group therapy and certainly psychodrama on this podcast. But before we get going here, Adena, I just want to remind everyone that, remind our listeners that Adena was on episode 223 of the podcast and also a guest on the Masterclass interview series for Trauma Therapist 2.0. But so let's dive in here. I'm really looking forward to this. Let's start.
Okay. So first and foremost, if we're going to be working with trauma, that we know that choice is the most important thing. So when I start my group, I always tell my group that my goal is to provide the safest or safe enough place, and I like that safe enough, for them to be able to take the risks that they need to participate to their level of discomfort.
Okay. Hold on. You said a lot there. So
yes, I did.
why making a distinction between safe and safe enough, or safest and safe enough?
Okay. So maybe not a distinction, me just talking out loud. So what I do is I use the term safe enough. And the reason I do that is, and that's only, I'd say, in the last year or so, because I heard that at a training I went to. And I went, you know what? That fits, because I could never be 100% absolutely, safe inside of myself or with a group of people, etc. And so is it safe enough inside of me with what's going on, what I know about myself, where I am in my healing process, and with the people that I'm with, whether it be an individual therapist or we are talking about group now, or with my group members. Safe enough.
Okay, I appreciate that.
And that, yes, and I always tell and I invite you to participate to the level of your discomfort. How come? Because as Ernie Larson said back in the mid-'80s, he said, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Mm-hmm. So for the people I'm working with, they've committed time and money and energy to be a part of this group. So and I say this, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming if you've done this, that you want a different result when you leave this group, each group and or toward the end, than you had when you first came in. And always the heads are nodding, saying, yes, absolutely. Okay. So then if you want a different result, different action has to be taken. So I'm inviting you. So there's even language here that's very specific that I want to make sure that we're highlighting. All right. So I want to go back a little bit. So in bottom line foundation principle is when we're working with people who have been traumatized, providing them with choice is critical. Mm-hmm. Providing them with choice starts to set up the safe enough. I self-disclose. I use this formula for self-disclosure. Do I have experience, strength, and hope to share with my client or clients? If I only have experience, I'm not going to do it. If I have strength and hope, and then I go to the next question, which is this going to be beneficial for them? Or is this more about me wanting to say something? That's another discerning. If it's in benefit of them, I will share and I will self-disclose. So I start with, the choices. It's important because when I was younger, I was either forced, manipulated, cajoled to do things that didn't feel right for me. that felt uncomfortable, that felt yucky, that I really didn't want to do, and I would never want to do that to anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm setting the stage, and I see already people starting to breathe a little deeper. They're settling a little bit more in their chairs, and what they told me, a young woman just told me on Wednesday last week. She said, by you saying that and deciding to talk a little bit about yourself, you're helping me feel more comfortable that you're just a human being. You're here to guide us, but I'm willing to share a little bit more about me because you're making yourself human.
Right.
So that's another piece with trauma survivors is I think self-disclosure, appropriate self-disclosure, really does a lot and goes a long way for the therapeutic alliance and for the client's willingness to then be able to do their own work and share with you. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And I'm just curious, Adena, was that something that just came easily for you, self-disclosing?
Yes, and I think the reason it did is because of my 12-step background. Mm-hmm. And what I had to learn, Guy, to be honest, is I had to learn the boundaries around it because I had also been in my own therapy before I was a professional therapist. And there were times that I sat in the client chair and I said, whose session is this?
Right.
And I was very unclear because the therapist is telling me about their life. And I'm going, first of all, I don't want to hear this. I don't need this. I'm here because I'm in the client chair because I was responsible to take care of my parents all the time. And I don't want to take care of anybody else.
Right.
So I was very sensitive to therapists who really didn't have great boundaries. I needed the time to be focused on me, my needs, not you.
Right.
So that's a big piece that I teach. And that experience, strength, and hope question. And is this, when I have an urge to share something, is this really more about me or is this going to benefit the client? Those specific questions have been helpful to my supervisees, consultees, concretely having a tool of how do I decide what to disclose, when to disclose.
Yeah, this is really great. I mean, I love the way you're highlighting what you're doing. I mean, it's so useful because it's so easy just to trip over these things and just have them go unexamined. But this is so helpful for our listeners here. So
good.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Good. Okay. So providing that choice, we're going for safe enough, appropriate self-disclosure. And so in the group, I'll say, all right, so making it safe enough, for me, there are 3 levels of that. The first is safe enough with me, the facilitator. So the groups that I run, most of the groups that I run are in a residential treatment setting where people are there for substance use disorder and PTSD and mood disorders. Okay, so I also do some outpatient groups, but in the residential, I say, you just met me. You don't know me from a hole in the wall. So are there any questions that you have of me, personally or professionally, that are really important for you to ask right now so that you can take another deep breath and just go, maybe she's okay and I can trust her a little bit, because you get to make that decision. There are sometimes there aren't questions, and I also say, I'm pretty much an open book, and at the same time, I have boundaries, and I reserve the right to have boundaries about what I answer and how I answer. So I'm modeling, Guy, for them as well as I'm doing this, right?
Right. So
I'm letting them know that they have a right to have boundaries, that I'm available, and the kinds of questions that I get are you in recovery yourself? Do you know what it's like to have trauma in your life? Do you have children? I get that one a lot. Tell me about your professional background. And then I have a few just in the last couple of weeks. Why did you get into the field in the first place? And I think we talked about that when we spoke another time, but I want to say it again.
Please, yeah.
Because I think this is so critical. I got into the field because I couldn't fix my own family. And I couldn't fix either of my parents or their marriage. And I felt like there was this black hole inside of me that was there because I was so inadequate. I should have been able to, right? That's the message. You should have been able to do that. Here I am, a kid. So I have this magical thinking that if I could fix other people and their families, that black hole would go away. I'd feel complete. I'd feel good about myself and go on. So what I would say out loud to you was, why'd you get into the field? Because I want to help people. And I wasn't aware of the answer I gave you 2 seconds before that until a supervisor asked me that and really challenged me to look underneath the I want to help people. Mm-hmm. And I got to that answer, and that was very painful. And it also was very freeing because I've been able to do a lot of my own personal work on that, which has made me such a better therapist. Oh. I don't think I would have been an effective therapist if I didn't get that answer and I didn't do and continue to do my personal work, which consists of not only my own therapy, but consists of work in 12-step programs to be able to continue to have the kinds of boundaries that are necessary so that I am not taking my work home, that I am not caretaking my clients, I am not doing for them what they can do for themselves, I'm not having unrealistic expectations for them, those kinds of things.
Adena,
so I just put that out there.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for sharing that. I mean, you said that, looking at or exploring why you were doing this beyond I want to help people was painful or hard. Say more about that. Why was that hard for you or painful?
It was hard because I had to look at the reality of that I didn't have the power to fix anybody, that it wasn't about me. And if somebody else didn't do what I thought they should, if I gave a therapeutic suggestion or something, that it wasn't because I was inadequate or, it was they have a right to their life, to their decisions. And my job is simply to provide information, guidance, recommendations, and to be there with them, be present with them, witnessing and supporting their process. And that's not an easy thing to do for somebody who comes from a role of caretaker, mediator, and fixer. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult. It's easier now because I have a lot of practice in it, but it was very, very difficult and painful because it was against everything in my DNA. And unfortunately, it was a very narcissistic piece because I thought if they didn't do X, Y, and Z or get better, under my watch, that reflected on me. And so the unrealistic, intense responsibility that I was taking for my clients really put me in burnout and, to be very honest, sent me to treatment. I went to 5 weeks of residential treatment myself in 1990 because I took a big dive, and that was the bottom I had to hit to then come back and go, okay, I can't do my work this way. This isn't helping me. It's not helping my clients. What do I need to do different? And that has really been the last 29 years. And I'm grateful for that because I believe that I've gotten feedback that I've been incredibly helpful to people because of the bottom I hit, what I learned, the pain I faced, the grief I have felt of the loss of not being able to fix my parents ever.
Yeah.
My dad passed 4 years ago. My mother's still alive. Can't do it, guy. Haven't been able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I mean, what you're saying is just, I think, so crucial for people to hear, and because there's such a different stance, such a different perspective from when one is moving from a place where, yes, I can fix, I can cure, I can remove pain, as opposed to I'm here as a witness, as a guide. I mean, it's such a different stance, and it really does reflect back on who you are as a being, as a person, as how you're perceiving yourself, what's important for you. It's so powerful. I mean, you can hear it in your voice too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, it's incredibly important to me. It is how I stand in the world and with my clients. And the feedback I've gotten for your listeners is, and I just got this yesterday. It was a very tough group. And they really did great work. And one woman said to me, I really appreciate the respect you showed us by inviting us to share our responses and reactions to something that happened in the group that was painful, in the group process itself, that you heard us, that you allowed us to say that we were angry with you, that you didn't try to do anything to make something better.
Right.
You listened, you invited us to speak, you respected what we had to say, and you owned that you had your own growing edge and that our feedback was important to you.
Wow, that's intense. I'm getting goosebumps here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just being in the moment, being able
Yes.
to be present with uncomfortability, as you talked about, moving up to one's level of uncomfortability. And even as yourself as a therapist too. Wow.
Well, right on. I mean, if I can't do that, if I can't stay present in that, and I breathe slowly and deeply, for anybody, again, for the listeners, it's like, well, how do you do that? I have a lot of practice of breathing slowly and deeply. Why? Because I really believe what Dan Siegel's taught us in interpersonal neurobiology, which is that my nervous system impacts yours. Mm-hmm. So if you're anxious and you're having a response over here, and I fall into that, where are we going? Right. So if I stay present, if I'm breathing slowly and deeply, your mirror neurons are going to start going, and you're going to start reflecting my emotional state and physical state. That's what I want, right? I want to help somebody, regulate their nervous system. And the other piece that's critically important too is this is not about me anymore. It's like, oh, I'm the therapist, I have to figure all this out. No, I see that. I've let go of most of that through my personal work and my psychodrama training, Guy, because psychodrama training, you have to do your own personal work. You have 680 minimum training hours of being in group yourself, learning the method, the theory, and the techniques with yourself and your colleagues. So,
Adena, can you just outline psychodrama a little for those listeners who aren't too familiar with it?
Yes. So psychodrama literally means psyche in action. And what I tell my clients is it means the stories of the soul in action, because psyche equals soul. So we're telling our stories not in a verbal narrative form. We're telling them by doing. So often people think of it as role play. Role playing is a piece of psychodrama, and we could do a whole course on this, right? So we're giving a very brief, but it's putting things into action. I say we're doing rather than talking. Psychodrama says, show me, don't tell me. So I'll give an example, and I wanted to talk about this in terms of doing a group anyway, so it's perfect. So we're talking about safe enough. We'll go back to that. We're at the beginning of the group. We're providing that safety. We're modeling that. I've already asked them, what about me? I've answered whatever I've answered. We go to the second level of safety. I do this in a psychodramatic way. We're doing confidentiality in the group. Because if confidentiality is not there, then it's not safe enough to take a risk and share anything with you, because you're going to go out and say it to whoever. Mm-hmm. So confidentiality. So how do we do that? Well, there's a woman named Dorothy Satten, Satten, who was a student of Jacob Moreno, who was the founder of psychodrama. And she was a trainer worldwide and did a lot of work here in Arizona. And I did some training with her, so many of my colleagues. And she created something called the well of confidentiality. And that is when we stand up and we are holding hands in a certain way that I can't model for you right now, but we hold hands in a certain way where we're creating a well. So our hands are there and there's a circle in between. There's an emptiness there. And we are doing confidentiality by stating our name and a word that represents confidentiality to us. And we're putting our name and that word of confidentiality into the well. People love it. And always with boundaries. So with trauma survivors, does anybody have a boundary or need to state a boundary about touch with their group members? That's the question I asked prior to this. Does anybody need to be asked to touch? Does anybody have a problem touching? If anybody does, we don't do the hands. We stand, we put hands on shoulders. We always adapt to the boundaries that are needed in the room. The person who says no gets it. That is the person who's respected, right? Mm-hmm. So that's more safety. So just doing confidentiality in that way is different than, okay, raise your hand and pledge confidentiality.
Right. Right.
They're
right.
engaged with something. They're connected with each other. They're making eye contact with each other. We're looking at the different hands in the circle and the diversity. And I can be curious and make comments about a lot of things.
Right.
But just getting up out of the seat, let's just say that, just getting up out of their seat, you're moving the energy already. And people are beginning to be able to be a little bit more spontaneous, be able to move out of the box, not get stuck in the seat, stuck in their frame of mind. Different perceptions are available to them, more open mind, just by standing up.
Right. And also you just by that action you're attributing more importance to confidentiality than just a raising of a
Good point.
hand or so forth.
Point.
It's like this is important enough for us to do this specific action. Yeah,
That's
I love
correct.
that.
That's correct. So action, that's what it's called, action methods, and that's what we're doing. And it also neurobiologically, it hits every level of the brain so that it's not an intellectual exercise. It gets everywhere, which locks in the learning of that. And people will carry that experience with them, whether they're conscious of it or not. And that's what we want. We want people, when they leave the room, to be able to put it into their lives and apply it in their lives. And if I just sit and lecture, nobody's going to do that.
Right. Wow.
May I go on? Did you have a
Please,
question? Or?
no,
Okay.
no, go, please. I'm soaking this up.
Okay, so so the next piece, the third level of safety, and this I got from Dr. Kate Hudgens, is called the circle of safety or the circle of strengths. And I've adapted a little bit to me. That's what I do. I take trainings and then I kind of adapt it. I give people credit and then I do it my style. And that's the other thing that I really hope for people and encourage people is to get everything they can and then put it in their toolbox and integrate it for themselves. And it took me what it took me, right? So I'm doing this 30 plus years now that I feel like I have my own style. And my mentors told me that when I first started out. I'm like, oh, well, I want to be like her, or I want to do it like her. No, you're going to come up with your own style. I didn't believe them, but I could tell you now, looking back, yes, it happened. So it's possible, right? Okay. So the third thing is we're going to concretize. This is also psychodrama. We're going to make the intangible tangible. That's what psychodrama does. So Richard Schwartz, developer of the internal family systems model. That's a model that I love very much and that I integrate a lot into my work nowadays. He talks about the 8 C's of self-leadership. These are words that start with the letter C. Things like creativity, calm, connected, confidence, compassion, curiosity, I'm trying to think of anything, courage. And so I have those up on a whiteboard because these are the qualities that when we stand in these qualities, we are in the place of being able to heal the wounded parts of ourselves. So directly from Schwartz, he believes we all have parts of ourselves, and that is extremely normal. Multiplicity in human beings is the natural state. So if you buy that, then people who have been traumatized, depending on the continuum, just may have more distinct parts of themselves than others. Right. You following that?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So my clients usually buy that, like, oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'll say, you're seeing the therapist part of me right now. If you were home with me, you'd see the mother part, you'd see a different part of me. That makes sense to people, part of me. So these 8 C's, what we do psychodramatically is we concretize them by, I have a whole bag of gorgeous, different textured, colored scarves. And that's a psychodramatist's toolkit. Everybody's carrying around scarves and different props to do things with. So that's the easiest thing to travel with. And so I'll ask my group members to identify one of those 8 C's that they're bringing to the group right now. Another thing about psychodrama, the here and now, right now, this moment. Wow. What are you bringing this moment? So, and then I say, go for it, pick a scarf or scarves that represent this. And they will present that to the group in many different ways. And they'll talk about the the strength I'm bringing is, let's say, creativity, which is a very big principle in psychodrama, and that is thinking outside the box. And I chose this scarf because, however they fill in that blank, and then we place the scarves on the floor, outside of our chairs, in a circle, connecting with each other, so that we have a container of safety with strengths within which now we will do the rest of the work that we're going to do this morning or this afternoon. Mm-hmm. So there is a concretization of a container. How important is that with trauma? Trauma feels like, oh my God, it's everywhere. It comes out of the blue. It never ends. I'm going to feel this way always. These flashbacks, I don't know where they come from. Oh, we have a container, and it's of the strengths. I'm surrounded by strengths. I can step on that scarf anytime I need to connect my body with that strength. And I can be in a different state. I can be in creativity when I was just in terror. But if I move my body, there's your action again. I move my body to that scarf. I can take a few breaths and I can be in that state. Oh, I can change my internal state that quickly. That's incredible for people.
Wow.
I mean, I know what I'm talking about because I do it every day. Does it make sense as I'm talking to somebody, to you, who's not in my group?
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, fortunately, when I was in graduate school, I did a whole workshop on psychodrama. So I know how powerful it is and how sometimes challenging it can be to actually do it, to be in it,
right.
But how amazing it is too. And it, like you said, it really is an invitation to be in the moment, which isn't always easy, but it's so profound.
It's extremely profound, and it's what trauma survivors and addicts are avoiding at every turn. And so, we talk a lot about mindfulness now, and mindfulness, yes, being in the moment and being able to have an observer part of yourself present so that you can notice and wonder about what's going on. There's your curiosity, instead of being in fight, flight, freeze, or submit mode. And we get to practice that. We get to actually be in it and do it in group with each other instead of just talking about how to do it. No. So that is extremely powerful, and we know the power of group. I know we're coming to the end of our time, so I don't want to talk a whole lot more, but in terms of group, what I hear over and over again is the power of I'm not alone. Mm-hmm. Other people are feeling the way I'm feeling. Other people have said the same things to themselves. Other people have experienced X, Y, or Z. Maybe not the exact situation I did, but they have the same feelings. They're experiencing the same symptoms. They showed up to therapy for the same reasons. They're having the same struggles, and we can support each other. So there's something that I end the group with, as we do usually hands on shoulders in a circle. And it's actually part of, I don't want to say a prayer because it's not a religious thing, but it's part of a statement that comes from a woman named Roseanne, who was the founder of Overeaters Anonymous. And the statement says, I put my arms around you, or I put my hands in yours, because together we could do what we could never do alone. Oh. And that sums up group to me.
Well, like I said before, I can hear in your voice this I don't know what it is. It's a willingness to be in the moment. I hear in your voice, you know what? Let's go into this. We're going to go into this together, and I'm going to, we're going to do it safely. I'm creating it. I really heard that when you were, and I felt that. But I want to ask you, Adena,
yeah.
What do you feel you bring to this specific experience of doing this group work?
The first quality that came to me was authenticity. Authenticity, skill. I do bring creativity because I'm outside the box. What I was taught in psychodrama is I need to be the most spontaneous person in the room. And so if my anxiety's up, then my spontaneity and creativity is down. And boy, have I experienced that one. that has been, and so once I get scared, forget it. Like my brain shuts, you're right, it short circuits and I can't be thinking about stuff. So, so authenticity, skill, experience, strength, and hope, and a willingness to be 150% with them and follow them and help to lead them out of whatever muck and mire they're in.
Wow. So are you, people are listening to this and they're going, oh my God, I got to get in her group. So what you said when we start, I feel like I want to get in your group. You started out by saying, so are you doing where are you doing these groups? How do people learn about these groups?
Okay. So, I have one group in my private practice right now. I am moving away from private practice with clients to more training, consulting, and keynote speaking.
Okay.
So that's important to know. So the mainstay of the groups that I'm doing now are at a residential treatment center. And I really don't want to say the name of that treatment center because I don't want to seem like I'm advertising for anything. But it's a residential treatment center here in Tucson that very much believes in the power of experiential psychotherapy. So I'm grateful for that and the support of that. And part of my new business is to be able to do consulting groups in action. And I'm running two consulting groups right now with independently licensed professionals. The reason I don't do them with associate license is because I would then be responsible for the work somebody else is doing. And that's way too much responsibility for me at this point. So with independently licensed people, whoever's listening here, if you'd like to be part of a group that uses experiential methods in consulting about cases, etc. I'm looking at developing that actually online. And how could we do that online? Because I do it face to face. And so if anybody's in the Tucson area, anybody wants to fly in, you just call me, or email me, and we'll set something up. But I'm looking to do it online. So if anybody's interested, also contact me. I am willing to be very creative here.
Wow. Well, I think that would be amazing. And I'll have, just want to remind everyone that I'm speaking with Adena Bank Lees. I'll have everything linked up here at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. I'll have your website, obviously, and a link for your consulting. And of course, your book, Covert Emotional Incest, The Hidden Sexual Abuse, A Story of Hope and Healing. But, so that sounds like an amazing opportunity to be able to do consulting with you online. Awesome. Okay. So in terms of the best way for people to get in contact with you, would it be just obviously through your website?
Through my website, yes. I have a contact page there, and they can email through there.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay. So before we close out here, Adena, and this has been like a masterclass in group therapy for trauma. What can you share a go-to book recommendation, whether it's trauma related or not?
Yeah, so I want to give a book called Healing World Trauma with the Therapeutic Spiral Model. And so again, Healing World Trauma with the Therapeutic Spiral Model, which is by Dr. Kate Hudgens and Francesca Toscani, who were the developers of the Therapeutic Spiral Model, which is a specific model of psychodrama that focuses on work with post-traumatic stress disorder and dissociative disorders. It is a neurobiologically based model. And Kate and Francesca are my mentors. And Francesca was the editor of my book, so she's a psychodramatist as well as an editor. And I've just learned so much from them about how to work in a safe way using action methods with trauma survivors. Because early on, Guy, we didn't have some of the information that we have now. And so some of the work that was done really took people out of their windows of tolerance, if people understand what that means, and really like all this catharsis, rage, hit the pataka bat and scream and do all that. Well, how do you integrate that, and how does that help your nervous system? And so there's just a lot more information now that we have about how to work with people in this way that they can they can learn something and apply it. And I really love this model. And it doesn't, what I also want to say is, you can do trauma-informed psychodrama without being certified in TSM, which is what I do. I'm not certified in TSM, so I want to say that. I continue to learn, and I continue to kind of make it my own and do my own thing. And Kate has given me her blessing on that. So she's a brilliant, incredible mentor. It's a great model, and I lead people there to see what they would like. Take what you like and leave the rest.
So that book, again, is Healing World Trauma with the Therapeutic Spiral Model, Psychodramatic Stories from the Front Lines by Kate Hudgens and Francesca Toscani. Adena, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I mean, this was really wonderful and inspiring, and just so thankful that you're here today.
Thank you so much, Guy. It's a pleasure, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, this episode is sponsored by Trauma Therapist 2.0, community to educate, support, to inspire new trauma healers. If you're a new trauma worker, new trauma provider and healer, just starting out on the trauma-informed journey, and you're tired of doing this alone and looking for support, looking to be around a community of other passionate trauma clinicians, I invite you to check out Trauma Therapist 2.0 at traumatherapist2.com. That's traumatherapist2.com.